Well, it's great to be with you this morning. It's a real special time for Belinda and I to be back in our old haunt. I have a lot of memories in this place. Every time I look out here at these pews, I remember the pew races we used to do. I'm not sure if your floors are as clean as they were when I was here, because we used to, start at the back here of the sanctuary, and we would race by grabbing the edges of the pews and coming here to the front. And that was the way we kept your floors clean, if the janitors didn't do that. But, Belinda had to remind me that the last time I was here, I was a district superintendent. But to help you guys get over that, what I wanted to return back to was when I was an associate pastor here. And then, like Gordon said, and thank you for that introduction there, Gordon, my specialty or my focus was youth ministry and evangelism. And we had a lot of fun during those times. I really want to give a big shout out to Ron Page, and Jamie Page and that whole family, and Jan Lynch, and so many others that had developed a rather significant youth ministry here that I was able to come and inherit. So I just want to thank them for that. And today, I recognize that this is a historical celebration. As Belinda always reminds me, this isn't about you, Skip. This is about being here and celebrating this wonderful ministry that this town has supported, that this community has been a part of for all these years. And of course, as you know, you have captured the vision of this ministry when you became the Heart of Longmont. I mean, not only are you kind of in the center of Longmont, which when you heard about your history, Mrs. Yoder's done a good job putting that together in her presentations that you can see on the website there. But you remember how you started downtown? And I just want to let you know, sometimes things just never go away. Memories. The superintendent of public schools in Cortez, Colorado, when we were there, came up to me one time and said, Skip, I used to go to the First United Methodist Church downtown Longmont, and I still haven't gotten over it that they moved it out there to the prairie, right? And I said, well, it was just the edge of town where the cemetery was. I mean, it's not the prairie anymore. It's kind of in the heart of Longmont. It's like Core City now. But anyway, it's just great to be back. And I mean, what can I say? I mean, David's just such a wonderful person. I mean, I had such a pleasure serving with him, again, on the cabinet and working with the bishop in that various capacity. I mean, the Rocky Mountain Conference and the Yellowstone Conference, which is now the Mountain Sky Conference, wouldn't be the kind of conference it is if it hadn't been for David's work and so many things that you did and the kind of support that you gave, David. So it's just a real pleasure to be able to be here, and thank you for sharing your space and risking me being up here. I just thought that was so cute that you switched your words like that. Because if the people remember when I was here, and it'll probably happen today, I did that all the time. In fact, I actually have the quote right here. Barry Kimbrough, who was the senior pastor at that time, and Dick Van Skyke, Barry took me in his office one day and even said to me, Skip, do you just make, he said, Skip, do you plan to make those mistakes, or do you just make them up, as you go? And I said, yeah, I guess I just make them up. So I will warn you to start here. But what I thought we should do today, though, is I couldn't just come and be Walter Strickland. I had to kind of return back to being Skip. And the way I would do that is whenever I got to lead the youth group here, and I have to admit, the youth group was large. A lot was going on. We had the Good Life Singers, right? A lot of the kids were in this I can't even say it, Belinda. How do you say it? Tinnitabulation bell choir. I didn't say it right. With Mrs. Nixon, right? And you notice I still use terms like Mrs. because, I was the youth director. It wasn't Carolyn. I'd have to say Mrs., right? So if I refer to you, as Mrs. Yoder or Mrs. Oling or whatever, forgive me as I slip back into these days, Mrs. Hance, here they are. Iris, did I ever call you Mrs. Rottenberg? I'm not sure if I did that, but anyway, it's good to see you. But then we had 4 Sunday school that met on Sunday morning, youth classes. And then we had our youth groups, and the only reason our youth group was great because Belinda was one of the sponsors. We had a junior high and a senior high youth group. And then there was also a Bible study that we had over at the parsonage, and the parsonage was, is it 1147? 1147 Atwood. It was right over here in Atwood. It was always nice to be near the church. I remember one Christmas Eve when it snowed so hard that we couldn't have Christmas Eve service. Remember that blizzard? But I remember skiing over here to the church, just to see if anybody else had shown up. And Barry, of course, lived just right down the street over here in that parsonage, which Belinda's parents eventually bought. And so, we were able to get here. But it was just a wonderful time, and we just had a lot of opportunities. And of course, besides these organized programs, we had mission trips. We had just fun get-togethers. We had a lot of activities we were a part of. We did the melodramas. We would have fundraisers. I mean, just on and on. And there was over 21 volunteers that worked with that youth program at that time. So I just want to give them all credit and a shout out also wherever you might be. If you're watching this at this time, I just want to say thank you so much for your support and for your love of these young people and all the various persons that came through that program. Now, for some of you might notice I have a beard now. Well, I did this in honor of David. I thought maybe you guys would think we were twins, right? So I wanted to let you, because I always, was jealous of his beard, and I went off to this thing this summer, and I figured, what the heck, I just won't cut it off for now, and so I've been experimenting with that, so thank you. So here's how we're going to start. So this is Gaynor Nelson. She's a somewhat well-known artist here in the Longmont area, but we've been trying to work on becoming a music duo. And so she agreed to come help me today because I thought I'd be so nervous I didn't know if I could even play this thing. So she's going to be the anchor of the music, and we're going to pretend like we're back in youth group, all right? So you're going to have to help me out with some songs here, and I brought 4 of the songs that I know that we did a lot back in those days because we always started our youth meetings with singing because that was a fun thing to do. In some ways, I feel like we were predecessors to praise music, because we were already doing it. And I think the adults got jealous of the kids having so much fun, so we decided to bring it into the sanctuary. That was a little bit hard to do at first, but the choir eventually let go and let us do that. So I appreciate that. Thank you, choir member. Okay, so here's the songs we're going to sing. And I know COVID's on, so you have to do this to the level of your own safety. You don't have to take your mask off. But I am, in a second, going to ask you to stand, and we're going to do a little aerobic exercise this morning. I think when you come to church, it should be a holistic experience, You're going to have to deal with your mind, your soul, and your body, all right? So we're going to take care of all that today. This is also helpful for a brain coordination. So here we go. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off with one of the songs that we did, and this song was called I've Got Peace Like a River. And it goes like this. There we go. So I've got peace like a river. So if you got the kids there that can do this, I've got peace like a river. Very good. I've got peace like a river in my, where do you think? Soul. Oh, look at the praise team's got this. Okay. Praise team, you guys stand up here. You can turn around and help them get these, right? So I invite you to stand now. Keith's ready to go. He knows these songs. Ray does have this stuff too. So I've got peace like a river, peace like a river, peace like a river in my soul. Why don't I just teach you the second one? And I've got joy like a fountain, okay? Joy like, hey, and there, Belinda's, actually, watch Belinda down here. I've got joy like a fountain. Oh, look at David's got it there too. See that? Yep, there you go. Joy like a fountain. I got to remember it. Sorry, folks, at home, you guys at home, make sure you get off your couches, and you can do this with us too. Okay. Okay, Gaynor, let's get it started. Yep. Ready? I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river in my soul. Very good. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river in my soul. Nice job. Joy. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. You look good. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. See, Gaynor, I told you they would be advanced at this. They could do this. Isn't that exciting? All right. So, okay, well, since you're so good, we thought we'd bring a second song to challenge you that we kind of enjoyed back in those days. And this one's Jesus is a Rock, and He rolls my blues away. All right? So we got hand motions on this one also. So Jesus is a rock, and He rolls my blues. And you can kind of like do like a little tear, right? Is that what we did? Tear away, okay? And then we go, in your best John Travolta. Anybody old enough to remember John Travolta here? Is that right? Okay. In your best John Travolta, bop, shoe bop, wee. Okay? Right? Bop, shoe bop, wee. And you don't have to touch your shoe. Just do whatever's easiest for you. So anyway, Jesus is a rock, and He rolls my blues away. Bop, shoe bop, wee. Okay? Oh, man. They're going to think we're a Pentecostal church here. We'll be waving our hands. This is so cool. Praise the Lord. Here we go. All right. We're going to try to keep this a little slower. That's why Gainer's here, because I get too excited. All right. Here we go. Ready? Jesus is a rock, and He rolls my blues away. Bop, shoe bop, wee. Jesus is a rock, and He rolls my blues away. Bop, shoe bop, wee. Jesus is a rock, and He rolls my blues away. Let's sing a verse here. When you wake up in the morning and the sky ain't bright and blue, you can sing with me. When you wake up in the morning and the sky curls after you. When you wake up in the morning, now Jesus gonna see you through. Ready? 'Cause Jesus is a rock, and He rolls my blues away. Bop, shoe bop, wee. Yeah. Jesus is a rocker, and He rolls my blues away. Bop, shoe bop, wee. Jesus is a rocker, and He rolls my blues away. I thought this was kind of fun. When you look in the mirror and your face causes it to crack. When you've been through your day and you feel like you've been attacked. Well, Jesus gonna love you now, baby, now that's a fact. Ready? 'Cause Jesus is a rocker, and He rolls my blues away. Bop, shoe bop, wee. Jesus is a rock, and He rolls my blues away. Bop, shoe bop, wee. Jesus is a rocker, and He rolls my blues away. Let's do that one more time. Ready? A little faster. Jesus is a rocker, and He rolls my blues away. Bop, shoe bop, wee. Jesus is a rocker, and He rolls my blues away. Bop, shoe bop, wee. Jesus is a rocker, and He rolls my blues. Jesus is a rocker, and He rolls my blues. Jesus is a rocker, and He rolls my blues away. All right. Good job. Now, there was one I always loved singing, but with COVID, we can't do it the way we would have done it. This is called Shake Another Hand. If some of you guys remember this song, we bumped another rump and hugged another bod and tweaked another cheek, and we did all sorts of different things to each other. Rubbed another back, rub a back, right? All these things. But we're not going to do those because we can't, but we can do the safe COVID version of this song. So we'll just do 2 verses. So the first one we're going to do is just wave another hand. Can we all try that? Wave at me here. All right, everybody at home, wave it at you guys. Wave at us here. There we go. Nice job. All right, we're going to wave another hand, and if you feel comfortable, we'll just bump another fist, okay? Bump another fist. Now, in this one, it's okay to bump fist, behind you, in front of you, wherever you can find a fist, too, if you want to do that, too. If there is somebody you hadn't got to bump fist with this morning, you want to run to find, do that, okay. Just be safe, right? David? Okay, there we go. Don't want to get anybody in trouble here. So we're going to start this one kind of slow if you don't know it. So it goes like this. So, wave another hand, wave a hand next to you. Now look around and wave. Here we go. Wave another hand and sing this song. Wave another hand, wave a hand next to you. Wave another hand and sing. And here's the chorus. Sing la 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 hallelujah, la 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 hallelujah. Ah la 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 hallelujah, ah la 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 la. Nice job. Hallelujah. Okay, now we're going to bump another fist. Careful, ready? Bump another fist, bump a fist next to you. Bump another fist and sing this song. Bump another fist, bump a fist next to you. Bump another fist and sing. Sing ah la 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 hallelujah. Ah la 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 hallelujah. Ah la 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 hallelujah. Ah la 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 la. Let's do it one more time. Hallelujah. La 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 hallelujah. Ah la 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 hallelujah. Ah la 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 hallelujah. Ah la 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 la. Hallelujah. All right. You guys are doing great. I should have brought even crazier songs. All right, I'll let you sit down for this one. And then the final one I wanted to close with was, have you seen Jesus, my Lord? Remember that one? Have you seen Jesus, my Lord? He's here in plain view. Take a look, open your eyes. He'll show it to you. So this, Belinda, this would be a song we closed youth group with tons of times. Not this, I know at the Up With Youth events and you know, just for me, standing here, it sort of brings back those memories of so many nights, so many days. Excuse me. 2 a.m. or sometimes, singing these songs and just being a part of this and what it meant, to be here with your kids. So just thank you for letting me do this. So this song is kind of a sweet one here. And especially the second verse we're going to sing, have you ever stood in the family, like the family, the church, the community that we are, with the Lord there in your midst, seeing the face of Christ on each other, which is what it's all about. Have you seen Jesus, my Lord? So this song goes like this, and please sing with us. Have you seen Jesus, my Lord? He's here in plain view. Take a look, open your eyes. He'll show it to you. Ready? Have you ever stood at the ocean with the white foam at your feet? Felt the endless thundering motion? Then I say, there you go. You've seen Jesus, my Lord. If you know the desk count, have you seen Jesus, my Lord? Go ahead. He's here in plain view. No, switch back. Take a look, open your eyes. He'll show it to you. Have you ever stood in the family with the Lord there in your midst? Seen the face of Christ on each other? Then I say, you've seen Jesus, my Lord. Have you seen Jesus, my Lord? He's here in plain view. Take a look, open your eyes. He'll show it to you. Thank you. Thank you. Well, I thought what I should do today is also bring along some pictures, since this is a time of history and a time of remembering. So I brought some pictures, and maybe, I'm kind of sad I can't guarantee that everybody's child's going to be in there, but hopefully I got a few of them. And maybe this tells you a little bit about what we did. So go ahead and go to the next one. So the deal is, I was already becoming active when I was down at the Out of School of Theology, which is the reason I came to Colorado in the first place. I grew up in Spokane, Washington, went to the University of Puget Sound, I had really planned to go back home to the Pacific Northwest Annual Conference. I was the Conference Council of Youth Ministries president there and all those kinds of things. So that was my goal. But then I had met this young woman, and it wasn't Belinda at that point, down at the University of Denver. And I thought, well, maybe I should check this out. Maybe I should stick around and see how that works out. Well, it didn't work out because she dropped me about 2 weeks before I came here to Longmont. So I don't know if you guys remember, but my very first sermon was, how do I sing the Lord's song in a foreign land? Because what I was thinking, like, my God, how did I end up here? Because that wasn't part of my plan, you know. But the deal was, Jan Lynch had come and gotten me out of a conference council, a youth ministry meeting, and an Up With Youth planning meeting that was happening here at the Longmont Church. And they had heard about me because I was the youth minister down at the University Park United Methodist Church, right across from University of Denver in Iliff, while I was going to school there those 3 years. And so Barry, I guess, had heard about me or something, and they were looking for someone to take Ron Page's place as he was going out to Central Methodist College at that point. I think it's university now. And so, okay, so Jan came up and got me and said, come here. And I was in the meeting. I said, what? Come here. She goes, all right. So she just grabbed me, and I was upstairs in the second floor, took me downstairs into Barry's office there, and he sat me down, and he said, I want to talk to you. I said, about what? What'd I do, you know? And he said, no, I just want to offer you a job. If things don't work out in Pacific Northwest Conference, or if you don't go back, you know, we want to talk to you about being our youth pastor here. I said, well, I guess I'm not going back. I mean, at that point, I had told the cabinet there that I wasn't going home. I was going to stay here, and I didn't know what was going to happen next. And so he said, well, you've got a job here, so no matter what happens. I said, well, they might not transfer me here, because I'd already been ordained a deacon. I don't know if you guys remember the old Methodist system, but you were ordained a deacon first before you became an elder. And so he said, nope, you got a job. So at least I thought, okay, I'd have a job here in Longmont. Well, this is what I came in. It was that car right there. And my whole life possessions were in that car. And that's important because that parsonage there, wasn't it 5 bedrooms, Belinda? And 4 bathrooms. That was really nice to have 4 bathrooms, I have to admit. But I never even saw the basement for the first year because, you know, it was just down there. And so I came here, and I hadn't met Belinda at that time. And again, I had no furniture, I had nothing. But luckily, First United Methodist Church was out, you know, doing their mission work as you always did, and you were hosting families from Cambodia. And so you had collected a whole lot of furniture. And appreciate that. You know, you outfitted my first home. And I just want to say thank you so much. We had this wonderful, you know, couch that I'm sure somebody else had enjoyed for 50 years before it got there. It was just one of those church couches. You know, it was actually really fun. We loved it. It was even L-shaped, right? You know, and a couple other things there. So at least I had a bed, and I had someplace to sit on. And I think in those days I had a TV and a stereo and whatever. I'd play all at the same time just to keep me occupied. But anyway, that's where we began. And then that's where we also began a lot of other kind of programs out of that, since I had this big parsonage. So you can go into the next picture. Then, and again, just a reminder, this is the team when I was here. Took that picture of Barry and Dick Van Skyke. I mean, Barry is one of the most amazing senior pastors I ever worked with. He was kind of my early mentor. He had taught me a lot of things. The only thing I could never figure out how he did was when Barry shook your hand, like when you were leaving here. If he shook your hand, you said your name to him, and you showed up at this church 3 years later, he'd go like, hey, Frank, how you doing? I was like, how does he do that? He just memorized names like that. Never forgot him. But he was an outstanding senior pastor, and I really appreciated my time with him here. I don't know if you guys noticed, but in those pictures of Belinda, you know, Lynn Greenholz put those together. That picture of Belinda at a senior prom, that was not with me, right? That was with Kevin Kimbrough. That was with Barry's son. So you need to know that. I mean, so I thought, yeah, Lynn snuck that one in there. So I was not Belinda's first love here. I mean, so you need to know that. So anyway, okay. So great team. And then Dick had the most amazing supply closet for the education program that I ever saw since. And he was just an outstanding organizer. And Dick and I did the 8 o'clock service, and then we would help with the other 2 services. But that was a great team to work with. You can go to the next slide then. And then I just wanted to show you what the church looked like then. The next slide. And then, the playground wasn't there, but just, if we're doing this history, 150th, this is only for history, okay? All right, next slide. All right, so when I first came, though, to work here, this was almost like the very first week. So this was the kind of youth pastor I was, just totally out of control all the time. And so the Times Call even noted that. And so this was an event we had between the other youth pastors from like Westview Presbyterian, I think Central Pres. I see some other churches there anyway. And so the deal was all the kids stood in a big circle and they put the youth pastors in the middle with these plates of foam. And then it was our job to, have to put like the pie in the face of the other youth pastors. Well, I can say no one caught me. So I won this thing, and I think the kids here began to be impressed. Like, no, maybe there's hope for this guy, So anyway, that's how I started at your church. Bringing you a great name in the community by doing the pie thing. So next slide, and then I guess though somehow I got the attraction of some of the reporters there. So I ended up in the paper a number of times. This is what a youth pastor looks like. You're always juggling everything all the time, and so I think her name was Mindy. From the Times called and said these kind things about me. She said I was spiritual, kinetic, insightful, and personable. And so it was fascinating as I read this article. There were a number of things that I said about my philosophy of youth ministry that I discovered were basically the foundation of my ministry. Wherever I served. After we left here to Pagosa Springs, we built a new church, Colorado Springs there at the Flying W Ranch, Broomfield, back down to Cortez. But every place, these were some of the primary things that I was trying to accomplish based on what I had in that article. And so I just wanted to sort of share those with you as I go through some of these slides. Because the young people were really a part of our life while we were here, right, Belinda? That was the foundation of you and I. And I need to tell you, I met Belinda here. But she wasn't going to the church at that point. She was living in Arvada. Wheat Ridge? Yes, Wheat Ridge. But she was working as a nurse in the neonatal intensive care units at the Lutheran Medical Center. And so she'd just come back to visit Jean and Forrest. And I saw her here. And so I had started this young adult group. There were 21 women and 2 men in the group. And so I asked her, I said, will you want to come to that? And so anyway, we kind of met through that. And now the truth, though, is Mrs. Akeson, I'm going to use that last name again. Mrs. Akeson leaned over to Belinda. She was sitting probably right here in this pew, if I remember right, and leaned over to Belinda, and she said to him, that's our new youth pastor. We think he has a wooden leg. Now, the reason for that is because I always have sort of walked, with a little limp in my left leg. I kind of drag it along sometimes. So I guess because she was a nurse, she had pity on me. and right, when you were doing your residencies, you were specializing in orthopedics at that point. So there must have been something that she just needed to find out if that was true. So she took a chance on me, and then the other thing you need to know is one of the things we did. In fact, you can go up to the next slide here. So one of the things we did here was clown ministry when I was here. And I also did that throughout the community. I even taught that through the rec department. And so I used to go out and I would take people and we'd go clowning around downtown. I think clowns are kind of scary nowadays, but we had a lot of fun with this. I just go harass all the businesses. I tried to turn, Longmont into Pearl Street of Boulder, I think at that point. So we got in clowning. And so one of my first dates with Belinda, I actually came in clown face, but I never talked when I was in clown. I was always a mime. So I came and I took her out for lunch as a mime. So I think that also inspired her. She thought, this guy's never going to be a talker. I'm just, I'll be able to get all the talking in. And well, she discovered afterwards. But her dad said once he saw me show up as a clown, he said, she's going to marry that guy. Right? So there we go. That's how we met. But this was another really fun thing that we did, this clown ministry, because one of the things that I had as my philosophy was that you had to get down at the same level of the young people you served. I had to be a significant adult in the life. I still had to set boundaries, set rules. That was a part of the ministry. Linda and I 2 years into this thing, and she brought a real gift to this. But, when those kids were over at our parsonage, or if they were here, I wanted to make sure that every adult that allowed their children to be a part of this program could feel that their kids were going to be safe. And one of the ways I even did that too is when you walk through the doors of this church, you were equal. I don't care who you were in your school. If you were the most popular kid, you're the cheerleader, you're the greatest jock, or you're a nobody, no one talks to you, they stick you in your locker. I don't care who you are. You walk through this door. You are a child of God. And you are important. And you are special. And I think that's something we were able to do for the time that we were here. And I hope we did that well. So you can go to the next slide. I'm juggling again, youth pastor. Next slide. Okay, so the way we did that was by getting with the kids and having opportunity to be with them in different kinds of settings. And so this was the Bible study. This is like the earliest days. I can see Terry Goon there. There's James Slauson. There's Steve Nixon. Lori Oling. See, there she is right there. And then Heidi Lynch is up on top. And it's just amazing, what each of these persons are doing now. And I remember that was a place where this particular group and many others who came through the parsonage could really get down and dig down deep in their own theology and beliefs. You can go to the next slide. But, of course, sometimes I wore them out. That's one of the things that I could actually do. I could actually always stay up much later than any of them could. And if they were getting a little rowdy, I made sure they got so tired that that's how I left them every night. So anyway, but that's there at the parsonage. We had a lot of fun with these lock-ins and overnights. Okay, next slide. And then, again, great times of discussion, because that's a lot of it, what it was all about, just having a safe place where they could talk about what was going on at school, what was going on in their life, what was happening in their families. Just a place that they could grow up and feel good about themselves. Next slide. It's kind of another one of those. And Medella was in the first one, so I didn't want to cut her off. Next slide. And then, many of them went on to be significant leaders. This is Steve Nixon here. And, and Steve's just this amazing pioneer in all sorts of alternative energy at this particular time. His whole house, I don't think he's even on the grid in terms of his house now, but he's really one of those research scientists that's really doing a lot of things that's going to be very significant going further in the years. That's just an example. But Steve was also an excellent leader here at the church, at the conference youth level, and in so many places. But that's because we could get down and give them the opportunity to be a leader in this environment, no matter what it might be in other environments. Let's go on to the next slide. So they got to know something about themselves. They got to experience life. Next slide. They got to have all these kind of, I don't know what to say, just fun things that we did. I think that's Amy there, right? Yoders, right? Underneath that mask, if you don't recognize her in the pink. Next slide. There we go. Julie Jacks, Wendy Fay. They all came in all sorts of sizes, too. You notice that? I think Wendy Fay was like 6'3". She always felt a little bit tall, a little bit left out at school. And Julie, we just loved Julie. Next slide. So we had a lot of fun, did a lot of crazy things. Next slide. There's Kelly, I see there. All right? And we got to do things like this. And this was an example. These, of course, there's amazingly talented young people standing on that stage. But sometimes maybe at school, maybe they didn't get the opportunity to be the lead, in the school play. Maybe they didn't make the cut. Sometimes kids get cut from the sports teams. Not everybody gets accepted. So I want to make sure when they came through that door that everybody was accepted. Everybody had a chance to excel and be a star. So that's why we did things like these melodramas and all these other activities where they could have a chance to shine. So next slide. All right, and then one more. Next slide. Okay, I want to stop on this one. This is for Iris's sake. I want to apologize one more time to you, Iris. I hope you'll forgive me before life is over here. When I was introducing Jill, and Jill's the wonderful person there in the beautiful blue dress, standing there on top of the whatever that's called, a bridge with the stream. Anyway, when I was going to introduce Jill, I was trying to be really creative, and I was trying to say, and now playing the virginal character, the heroine of now, Jill Rottenberg. But what I said instead was, and now I want to introduce to you one of the virgins of the church, Jill Rottenberg. So see, David, this is the kind of stuff I was talking about. And I remember Iris coming up afterwards and saying to me, well, Skip, It's really good to know. But did you have to share it with the whole church, you know? So, I'm sorry. All right. Sometimes you try to be funny and you're not. Okay, next slide. But this was also a time of calling. This is a time when I wanted the kids to be able to experience their own sense of the presence of God. You know, the power of the Spirit working in and through them. That they can be an instrument of God's love in the world. Next slide. So they helped each other. They reached new heights, you know, in some of the places they were. But they formed these amazing companionships. Next slide. You know, they became great friends. So there we got Steve and Heidi, and I believe Lori are there. You know, these, hopefully they are in touch with each other. It is fun whenever I see one of them. Sometimes they'll say, oh yeah, she lives here, or oh, he's here, or they, you know, that sometimes they do bump into each other, and they are still there for each other. They remember this time together. Next slide. Because they were lifelong friendships. But that's what a church is all about, right? I mean, part of my job was to go around and help churches figure out how to revitalize and how to be vital in today's world. But a lot of it begins right there. First of all, that we recognize that we are called to be here. We're not just here randomly. But there was something that touched your heart, that brought you here in the first place, that caused you to stay. Some of you for, who knows, 60 years, some of you are new. But whatever the case, this is more than just showing up and being a part of a social club. As we all know, this is a life-changing experience that we have when we come to be a part of the body of Jesus Christ. And that's what I wanted these kids to feel. They are called to be here. And I always believe that when anyone walked through any of those doors, that God had sent them. And it was my job to listen and to hear what gift were they bringing to this place, to that youth group, to this program. What need did they have? What were they longing for? What were they looking for? It was a calling. So next slide. And so we did a lot of fun things here. This was a place where we could practice, right? Practice doing things. So this one, these are just random pictures I just happened to find. So this happens to be the haunted house that we did over at the parsonage. Remember how I said the basement was so big? I had to figure out something to do with it, so I turned it into a haunted house one Halloween. And so I see, there's Lori Faye there, Terry Blessing in that one, and you can see some of the younger kids over there. So this was an opportunity where then the older kids could do something for the younger kids. So we can kind of go through these pretty quick here. Next slide. Let you see if you see your kids in there. Next slide. So the kids got all dressed up, and they decorated the whole basement. It was really cool. They spent days doing this. There's Amy there. Next slide. And, you know, we turned off the lights. I think there's Scott Liska, right? Liska's maybe in there. See some others? All right. Kelly Akeson, be in there. Next one. Next one. So that was the fun things we got to do. Because basically, we were on a journey of life together. And that's what happens in a church, right? In a church, you know, children are born, and we're looking forward to our first grandchild. And we know it's going to be a she. We can tell you that. A little girl that's coming. And that's going to happen in February for us. But that little child, you know, children join the community. They're baptized here. They begin to grow up here. They're married here. They live their life here. This is where we come and say goodbye. It's a journey of life. So that's what we were on, this journey together. Next slide. We had a lot of fun. Next slide. Sometimes we got kind of worn out. That's Julie Goon there, and then Jane Lake, I believe, with me. That's like tiredest I've ever looked. Next slide. We did some adventures. There's Jeff Goon, there's Terry Goon, myself and Belinda were up on top of the Mount of the Holy Cross. We used to have this pilgrimage up the Holy Cross every year. That was fun. Next slide, excuse me. And there's Belinda when I met her. You can see why I fell in love. Next slide. And then we got married here. If you remember, I thought there was 700 people at the wedding. Belinda says it's 610 or something like that, 650. All I know is that we stood in the reception line for 2.5 hours and didn't get anything to eat. But it was a rather large wedding. Actually, what it was February the 14th. It was a Sunday night. I had to come up with the youth program. So I said, what the heck, let's just get married. So, phew, I took care of that. Okay, next slide. And there's Barry. Barry did the wedding. All right. And then, of course, when you get married, often there's a result of that. Next slide. So we had Ian here, and that's Ian there on the left side, and he's with Katie Taggett, because Marty and Tom Taggett were two of the youth sponsors when I was here. So we started our family here. But that's what this church is all about. It's about the journey of life that we do together in community. And then let's move on. Next slide. And then finally, it's a place where we come together to bring about like a transformation. It's a place where we transform the ordinary into extraordinary. Every time we went on a mission trip, we would go and just be involved in these simple projects. And all the time we always thought we were going to do something for somebody. But every time we went anywhere, it was the people that we were with that always ministered almost more to us than we did to them. And that's what happened here. Now this one happens to be Alamosa. We had another trip to Mexico. That was a lot of fun, but let's just do this one, the one I found. Alamosa, we had this fence to paint. Next slide. We had to rest, but it was always fun. It's a fellowship time. It was like a 24-hour experience, right? Next slide. Painted the fence. Next slide. And then, we had some fun. We got to go out and see different things. I just thought these were fun to see these pictures of these kids at this age. Next slide. Actually, Belinda's pregnant there, I think. Next slide. All right. That was this post office in Alamosa. If you ever go there, we completely cleaned out their basement so they could put a root cellar in there. Next slide. So we had to pull all that stuff out of the basement. Next slide. And all that there. So one team pulled all that stuff out of there while the other team was painting the fence. Next slide. And then we went down to New Mexico. Next slide. So we always had a little fun with this. There's the green van. If you can remember that. We bought that when I was here. Next slide. All right. But, of course, as I said, it wasn't all serious. We would have these crazy fun things like we're doing sleeping bag races down the hallways here. I'm surprised more kids didn't get killed when we were. All right, next slide. And then the final one. All right. So, it was a special time of community, a special time of living together. And what I always was amazed at is how sometimes these kids that everybody thought were so ordinary just turned into these most extraordinary human beings. I remember Belinda, we were in Mexico City, and most of the kids went along because they were so excited about the fact we were going to go to Acapulco. But we had this amazing time in Mexico City. I mean, we played soccer with the kids down there. We took 4 dead rats, and we set up the goals with these dead rats. And we found this ball or something. We made it like with duct tape, right? And we played on this field that was just scattered with glass. It was just, but that was one of the most fun soccer games I've ever been a part of. It was that kind of thing. Or then we were having this goodbye party. The people were putting this on for us, saying thank you. And they'd made tamales for us. And I remember there was a couple of the kids, I thought they were autistic. I mean, they never said a word, ever in youth group. And we were doing this thank you thing at the end. We were saying goodbye, and people were standing up kind of giving this testimony like, we want to thank you very much for your hospitality, whatever. I remember 2 of those kids I had never heard a word from in youth group. All of a sudden, they stood up and started talking. We all sat there like, first of all, they're talking. And second of all, they were talking about the love of God and the blessings of Jesus Christ and being in community. I mean, it was amazing. We take those elements of communion, ordinary bread, ordinary juice, the ordinary, and we transform it into the extraordinary. And that's what I hope you guys keep doing for the next 150 years. That you continue to welcome people from whatever walk of life. That you meet them at their own level. That you recognize that they're probably there because they've been called to be there, as you were called to be here. That you have this opportunity to enter into their journey of their life with them. And you get to watch this ordinary be transformed into the extraordinary. And all of that is because of what was in that verse up there. Remember how Paul was telling us to come together, to sing praises, hymns, to sing these things where? From our heart. To clothe ourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, meekness, patience. To bear one another. And if anyone has a complaint, go to them and forgive them. Because you were forgiven, so you also must forgive. But above all, clothe yourselves with love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony. Well, that's what I learned by being the one that had this opportunity to receive this great blessing, to be able to work with your young people. So never take lightly the impact that you make on someone. Not just the people in the pews, but on each of us, Keith, myself, David, all of us that are appointed to serve with you, to be here with you. You know, we're just set aside for word, order, and sacrament as elders. But as we know, as United Methodists, we're all in this together. We are all ministers. We are all called. And you've been called in your heart. That's why you guys are called now, the Heart of Longmont. So Gaynor and I want to offer a song, and I see you guys are looking at your watches. That's kind of a normal thing with me. So, but I thought this was a nice little song that we wanted to kind of close this part with. It's called Come and Sing for Me. Because the first church is down there, I think, where Alberg's chapel is now. And this has kind of reminded me of those original days. I feel the shadows now upon me, and the angels beckon to me. Before I go, dear sisters and brothers, won't you come and sing for me? Sing those hymns we sang together in that plain little church where the benches all worn. How dear to my heart, how precious the moment we stood shaking hands and singing our song. My burden is heavy, my way has gone weary. I have traveled a road that is long, and it would warm this old heart, my dear brother, if you come and sing me one song. Sing those hymns we sang together in that plain little church with the benches all worn. How dear to my heart, how precious the moments we stood shaking hands and singing our song. In my home beyond dark river, your sweet faces no more shall I see, until we meet where there's no sad parting. Won't you come and sing for me? Sing those hymns we sang together in that plain little church with the benches all worn. How dear to my heart, how precious the moment we stood shaking hands and singing our song. How dear to my heart, how precious the moments we stood shaking hands and singing our song. Thank you to Gaynor. for helping me. Thank you. Amen. Oops.